What's going on, everyone? Chris here with Clutter Reduction Junk Removal, and today I want to talk about pricing, what goes into it, and some of the things you need to keep in mind so that you don't dig yourself a hole or work until you just can't anymore, right? Everyone wants to start a business so that you can run your own schedule, make your own money, and hopefully excel a little faster than you would if you were working for somebody else. But like everything else, determining how much to charge for your service or your product is not always the easiest, especially if you don't have sources to refer to. So for junk removal, it's a pretty straightforward concept, right? Somebody doesn't want something, we take it out, we get rid of it. All you're doing is saving the work for somebody else. So it's hard to kind of factor in pricing when it's such a simplistic situation, but there's so much in the background that goes on that sometimes it's just a little hard to figure out where you need to be. So I want to go over the 5 different things that you kind of need to keep in mind. And of course, a disclaimer is going to be the fact that your location is going to dictate everything. What you charge in California is going to be different from Florida versus Tennessee versus New York. You have cost of living, higher expenses, different insurances. It may cost more for a business in general just to operate in a state versus another. What's your population like? Do you have a high population, low population? How much volume can you pull in? Overall, location is going to determine the majority of these factors, and you need to keep that in mind and do your research before getting into a business that you're not familiar with if you have no previous experience. So that's a disclaimer for location. The next thing is going to be disposal, right? That is the main factor of our business. We are removing trash and then we are getting rid of it, whether you're scrapping, donating, or dumping. When it comes to disposal, there are 2 things you need to know. How much does it cost by the ton, and what is your minimum? A lot of places have a minimum drop-off fee. It may be pretty cheap, it may be really expensive. Your ton, so 2,000 pounds, is going to alter depending on your state and also your county. Different cities have different dumps majority of the time, so make sure you're factoring that into play. Call your local waste management companies, go online, find out how much it costs to dispose of trash. Trash is going to consist of basically anything that's not building debris or vegetation. So a couch, boxes of clutter, tables, chairs, furniture, stuff that you'd find in your garage full of tools, stuff like that, that's trash. Vegetation, of course, is going to be like palm tree branches or branches from a tree cut down or a bunch of bushes dug up. That's going to be vegetation, and typically it's a little cheaper. And then you have building debris, the not so cheap version of things. Building debris would be like wood, cement, drywall, tile. If someone just did a renovation, just gutted out a whole kitchen, all that is going to be considered as debris, and typically debris costs more money to get rid of. So you want to make sure that you know the 3 differences. On top of that, check to see how much it costs for surcharges. A lot of places will charge you extra depending on the type of item. For example, California, they charge extra for mattresses and appliances at a lot of their landfill stations. So you need to make sure you're keeping that in mind. If you go do a full clean out and you have 5 or 6 mattresses in there, you didn't factor that in and it costs $30 a mattress to get disposed of, that's going to be a $180 difference, $150 difference that you didn't plan for. That's going to wipe out a ton of your profit. So you need to make sure that you know trash, vegetation, debris, and surcharges, and then know that by the ton and by the minimum. And the reason you want to know the minimum too is if somebody calls and says, hey, I have a single love seat I want you to come pick up, you don't want to charge so little that your disposal almost matches it or consumes more than 75% of your cost. So it gets tough because obviously you can't charge an arm and a leg to come pick out a love seat because the customer is not going to want to pay more for that than they probably did to get the couch new. But you also don't want to go so little that you're basically paying the customer to get rid of something for them. So know your disposal. The next thing is labor. So how much you're going to pay your employees, or if you're having helpers that are temporary or seasonal or 1099, how much you're going to pay yourself. Are you going to do hourly, percentage of the job, a flat fee? Know this ahead of time so you know how to factor in your costs of your business. The third thing is going to be materials, and honestly, I think this is probably the most overlooked. I think a lot of people just assume, well, it's a part of the job, but that's not really the case. Majority of the time, you're not going to be using extra materials like you would on a day-to-day basis. So they're usually for special situations. For example, you may have PPE equipment if you're doing a hoarder house clean out or anything that's not very sanitary, and you want to get a hazmat suit, disposable gloves, and you want to wear the specialized mask if you don't want to be breathing in something, or booties on your feet. These are all extra charges that you don't normally have to do, so that you should charge accordingly. Maybe you need to do a tool rental for a specific job, whether you're breaking down a shed or cutting up a hot tub, or maybe you're digging up a patio that has cement in it, or you're moving around a bunch of tree stumps. You may want to rent a bobcat or something. That is a special tool rental. Make sure you're factoring that into your pricing. Otherwise, you're going to be diminishing your profit. The next thing, and this is a biggie, is overhead. How much does it cost to run your business? What are your operating expenses? Your bills for the business monthly. Your vehicle. Depending on what kind of vehicle you have, you're going to have maintenance, you're going to have fuel, you're going to have repairs. Your tires are probably going to have to get plugged every now and then because we're always going to the scrapyard or the landfill and there's nails everywhere. Overall, there's a lot that goes into it. You want to make sure you're making enough money that you're covering your marketing and that you're covering your insurances and anything it costs to run your business on a daily basis. And then the last thing is profit and taxes. Taxes you don't want to avoid because you will get in big trouble. And of course, you want to make profit so that you can grow as a business, you can grow as an individual. So me telling you how much I charge is most likely not going to help you out unless you literally live in my county, because I already know what all my prices are, and there's a good chance that your bills probably aren't going to alter super far from mine. Otherwise, it's not going to help everybody else. I can tell you that the national average for a full load is typically around $600 for a 12 to 14 cubic yard vehicle. But other than that, your location is going to drastically affect that. So in California, for example, in the majority of California, that $600 is probably their half load. And that may be, absurd to some of us who, maybe your full load is like $350, $400, which may depend on your area. Its location is going to dictate everything. So you need to make sure that you know what it's going to cost for you to take care of a job, and then apply that to your location. Call around, check some of your competitive areas, and see what they're charging to give you a little bit of an idea. But for the most part, your pricing is going to be affected by you individually. So if you're able to do things affordably and you're very frugal with how you do your jobs and you're really good at donating or reselling or scrapping to avoid the landfill, obviously you're going to save money in more than one area. If you're just going to strictly dump, or maybe you're just running debris all the time and there's not really much resale value or donation value, you're going to be dumping a lot, plus you have a higher surcharge. So you're going to make sure that you are charging extra when you do those kind of jobs. So those are the 5 things that I think are the most important when it comes to factoring into your pricing. And again, location, I can't say it enough, location is going to dictate everything that you do. So hopefully that helps and give you guys a little bit of an idea. I'm going to throw some things in the description, and I also have a link for yard signs if you want to try to grow your business through a more affordable marketing route. Yard signs are a great way, assuming that your city does not ban them. Make sure you check with your city regulations. Otherwise, yard signs, to me, are like the more affordable version of Google Ads. All that will be in the description, and hope everyone is staying busy in the season now that we are finally in June and things are picking up. So that is it for me. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye. This is an example of a job I did last week, just to kind of show you guys a little bit of the breakdown. The job ended up being around $549. The disposal was $35, which is a little less than a ton here in South Florida. My credit card processing fee was $16. My labor pay was $70. My bills daily, so took your whole total and break it down by 30, is $41. I pay myself 40%. I set aside 40% for operation expenses, and my profit window is 20% set aside. Now, as you can see over here, my total amount of operation, not including fuel, is $162, which means I made that threshold. So even if I wanted to tack in fuel there and vehicle wear and tear, I would still have plenty left over for profit. So that left me with a $57 additional profit on top of what I set aside for my profit and tax bracket. So the reason why I mentioned to make sure you know about your disposal is this was a household cleanout. It was a bunch of large furniture, some miscellaneous clutter, boxes, bags, things like that. If there were to be construction debris, let's say we picked up a garage full of lumber from a kitchen renovation and cabinets, a couple appliances, maybe some bags of tile, stuff like that, I can guarantee you that for this volume, my disposal probably would have been a little closer to $80 to $85, which means that that additional $50-ish would have diminished my profit left over from my operation expenses had I not increased the price. So if I were to have done a construction job, this probably would have been closer to like the low 600s, maybe upwards to 650, which means that it would have taken care of that extra profit that I would have otherwise lost. So that's why I mentioned to know your pricing, or if you have specific surcharges for items, maybe out of that whole household, let's say my dump were to charge me an additional $25 per appliance, and maybe I took away 3 appliances, that's an extra $75. If I didn't calculate that into here, that means my disposal would have been closer to 110, which means that that would be gone, and I probably would have been $6 or $7 in the hole as to where I could have been. So that's why we mentioned the disposal and knowing what everything cost so that you can protect yourself and still make that profit. So I hope this example helped.